and start acting as fast as they can. Otherwise, we're not gonna be even standing still. We will start to moving backwards.
You mentioned foreign countries, and I want to say that foreign countries are using Egyptian expertise. In the meantime, we cannot use...
drain.
Yes, and right now we cannot even use our Egyptian experts here. But talking about the whole situation, some people believe that maybe we can select some easy sectors when it comes to economy so as to boost economy, like for example tourism. We're not going to pay anything, but if just policymakers or the big management in the country can work on it very quickly, they can recover and they can bring a lot of money to the country. Is this true?
That's right. A lot of people have this vision about tourism.
With no effort.
Well, tourism is now, actually, we're talking about 2013, it became a very complicated and diverse industry. That's tourism. There is another sector that I'm suggesting as a management consultant to the decision makers. It's called service. If we talk about service, we'll find amazing facts. For example, in North America, 78% of the GDP, the gross domestic product, comes from service. Healthcare service, education, government services. If we focus on what the government has to offer.
What do you mean by this when it comes to Egypt? What kind of service and how can we benefit?
No, local services, meaning if we boost or improve our healthcare system, education systems, government services.
But this will take a long time. I mean, education system, for example, we heard about this years ago, even before the revolution, nothing happened. So when it comes to things that you have to work on it, you have to pay a lot of money on it so as to prepare it. This is important, but it will take time.
You see, the resources for service is there because you have population that uses the services and they cannot live without it. Nobody can live without education. Nobody can live without healthcare service. Nobody can cut their contacts with the government. So this is what I mean by services. If we improve that, people would depend heavily on services. Canada, for example, 79% of its national income come from their own local services. They're serving each other. Right now, if you notice, Egyptians depend heavily on cell phones, communication means, internet. All of that kind of services provide income. We don't have to rely on foreign solutions. We have them right here. But we need resilient policies. We need the decision maker to start acting as fast as they can and as innovative and active as they can. They cannot just sit down and watch and expect solutions, ready-made solutions. Or most of them are waiting for a foreign formula to come here and with a magic stick and it's going to solve all problems. That doesn't happen and would never happen.
Mr. Mohamed Youssif, back to this issue of economic infrastructure. What are the components that make up such economic infrastructure?
Infrastructure consists of, like I said, the private sector, people, the workforce, and the institution. We lack institutions. We lack effective institutions in Egypt. The Egyptian government, this one that has taken over authority, must act to build very effective and productive, innovative institutions. And institutions will start to make decisions. They usually depend on the minister. The minister is not there to develop. The minister is there to run the Ministry of Finance.
To implement the policies.
I'm sorry?
Basically to implement the policies, to follow up on the implementation
but
of the
who
policies.
produce the policies? This is what I'm talking about. Institutions that serve the ministry itself. They could call it consulting. They can call it pressure groups. They can call it interest groups. But they have to be formed. They have to be as professional as they can. That's the most important component of this formula. The second component is the workforce. The workforce in Egypt is shattered. Some are very qualified. Some don't know what the heck is going on. Now, if you implement training and professional training, agile training, in less than a year, you produce a qualified workforce. Unfortunately, the brain drain is going on in Egypt, or has been going on for a number of years. So I'm not saying that we have to call them back to Egypt and live their comfortable life abroad.
It has increased over the past 2 years, this
And it will,
brain
and will
drain
continue
of
to
the past 2
increase
years.
as long as we don't have local training. If they find the training they're looking for here, if they find the success they're looking for in a different country here, then we'll stay. I'm not gonna give names, but the media is full of very successful names. That's the second component. The third component is the private sector. Private sector is very important, and it has more interest to start business and to boost the economy more than the government, because this is their living. That's the mean of living they seek every day.
How can we harmonize all these elements together?
Decision making. That's the main problem. The main obstacle to every economic crisis is bad policies, bad decisions. If the
And
minister...
the lack of system as well? This means the lack of system.
Exactly.
Right?
And the minister is the only person that we're waiting to make a decision. That's absolutely
But
ineffective.
people as well, as I mentioned in the beginning when I was talking about people, I didn't mean the policymakers or the minister, I mean Egyptians in general, because when it comes to employees, people are a little bit frustrated, depressed, they don't want to work. You know, this is the main issue. How can we work? How can motivate people to work and to be part of the action plan?
Well, are you talking about the Egyptian model or in general?
I'm talking about us, Egyptians, people.
Well, the most destructive enemy for any economic activity is not being able to produce, is losing hope.
Labor in general, yes.
Exactly. So they look at January 25th and what followed January 25th as a crisis. Like I said, service is something that we're not going to import from a different country. Services in each other. We still have the hospitals running, right? We still have the schools, the universities running, right? We still have the communication companies, the internet companies running. They are, on the other hand, they are consumers. So if that sector there been worked on and developed properly, then you would have at least 70% of the Egyptian people selling and buying, servicing each other.
You're talking about the business cycle.
Exactly. That's a business cycle by itself, by the way. We still look at economy and economic success into the production sector, and that's absolutely wrong. Example, in Great Britain, for example, 22% of the GDP comes from the manufacturing sector. In Egypt, 38%. That doesn't mean Egypt is more successful than the Great Britain. It's because they are shifting to the information age, which we're still behind into. So service, like 78% of North American GDP comes from the service sector. If we start right there, servicing each other, trying to implement that kind of sophisticated part of the economy, then and only then we can have a step forward. I'm not saying this is going to be the ultimate success, but it's just a beginning to get out of this crisis. We are in an economic crisis. We are in a recession, to name a spade a spade.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that outsourcing is one of the recipes for our economic crisis here. Would you elaborate on this point and tell us, is this concept available here, or is it on the agenda of our decision makers?
Actually, outsourcing has been always existing in Egypt since, I would say, especially after the Second World War. Japan, South Korea has been using outsourcing. As a matter of fact, this modernity Japan is enjoying, it came from North America, especially United States. Outsourcing in the past 30 or 40 years came through the aid programs like the US aid, the European aid, and so forth. But it came in a form of sustainable development. And sustainable development provides small projects like solid waste management and the kind of services they give to Egypt, or an electricity station. That's all. I mean, it's been there. We have been using experts. We have been using experts even in the middle, in the Ministry of Education, in the Ministry of Higher Education. We have been using foreign education for at least 150 years, but we forgot to use it in the business sector and in the economic sector and use the know-how. The know-how is what we need. We don't need ready-made or ready-packaged solutions.
Let me take from you the know-how, because I think this is the key word if we're looking for success. So, Mr. Mohamed Youssif, Management and Training Consultant, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And now moving on to a break, and we'll be back to resume the breakfast show.